All right, everybody, welcome to November 21st coaching call. And we are really taking off here in the crypto markets. So let me just minus this off. Obviously, Bitcoin, right? Breaking out of a huge bull flag trend. When this started to mature at about a week long in and it started to creep up, this had really good odds for a lot of different reasons that we talked about in the channel. Volatility contraction, right? Market environment, so on. Oscillate would launch from a node. All these different things, these principles can line up, and you're like, okay, this thing's getting directional. Also, we're just more alert to directionality because I said when we have time frame alignment, not only does the magnitude of the trends increase, the frequency of the trends. That principle I started to talk about even before this broke out, guys. So you know that I've seen this over and over again to write these as rules in the channel. As you can see, right? Look at the last couple of weeks. We've had bigger green candles than we've had for the last like 4, 5, 6 weeks. If you look at some of that trading ranges, because we weren't in time frame alignment, we were neutral. Right now that we have time frame alignment, things are really taking off. So this is why the markets are contextual. Now, I had someone who tried to learn from their mistakes last time and was asking if they should take some off as it was breaking this like right here, right? And holding structure. And you think it's going to reverse? Well, I don't think it's going to reverse. I think you should always take some off if you need to take profits, right? But odds are, right? Now he's thinking, okay, last time I didn't take any off in reverse. Well, it's all contextual, right? It just broke a giant 7 month balance. Why would I think that it's going to reverse? Anytime that it does reverse, I'm buying. I've been longing everything. In fact, I moved everything over to spot. I'm thinking, okay, I'm not going to be shorting, so I'm going to be just going spot. And God forbid something doesn't hold, at least I got crypto instead of some futures contract. So I'll let you know when I start shorting again. If you want to see my shorts in the channel, you can type in short. I differentiate them. I also do a lot of, I was prior to this, the last couple of weeks here when crypto started to take off, doing a lot of S&P 500 trading where I have an extra edge with these things called the market internals. But I don't need that because look what Bitcoin's doing. Bitcoin and the rest of the market is on fire. Now, right, yesterday, Bitcoin, right, closed above this. Great odds that we were going to have another up day. Now, let's go to the real winner for today, which was my call yesterday, where not told, but I wrote in the channels a signal that not only that there was going to be a move, that there was going to be a huge move, right? Because when you break from a big move balance, you're going to get a giant move. Now, how did I just, why didn't I say this before? One, it's an odds thing, right? This is hugely maturing, right? The way that we got, first of all, we're in a giant fractal pattern and it's very mature. And we were right here. The way that we got there, right, is an inverse head and shoulders that creeped up and is holding structure. If we can get up here on volume, right, this thing was going to go crazy. We're at 385% relative volume, right? That means that, right, we are well above 8.85 times what the regular average volume would be if it was around 100%, right? That is insane. So this is and I was not only would I call this yesterday, imagining this as a scenario based on these probabilities, which I listed out, which by the way, in the system, everything is not only do I give you the signals, I pretty much lay out all my tools. All I ask is you don't share them with anybody outside the room. These took me a lot of years of sweat, struggle to put together, and like I could just sell the system as an extra thing, but I just show it in the channel, and it's around in the channel, like all these different things, as well as Kobe's things too, as well as if people join, they get a lot more tools, as well as like a lot of tool sets that I use, daily call stuff, how to record your data right in the right journals. Anyway, this was a mature balance, right? It was right up building structure. See, here was also a balance around a high volume node. Anytime it starts to do this around a high volume node, I'm on alert, as well as the mature balance, as well as what Bitcoin was doing. That's another market. And there was a couple other things that I talked about yesterday as well. Oh yeah, we had just a huge volume environment. The reason why Op would do this, and we got our huge move, and we got this bounce breakout, right? So now we have time frame alignment. We just have a bigger picture pattern. You should not be shorting anymore. Any pullback is an opportunity, both shallow or big, to go long. And if it gets overextended, just back off a little bit. This is what's happening with Bitcoin, right? Now, it just broke this balance, right? We still have other targets and things that are higher up, right? The next problem area would be the top of this balance. But remember, this thing goes very quickly. This thing got to $4, even more than that, very quickly in March, right? But it doesn't, up correction, up. But remember, when you have time frame, like once it broke this balance, every pullback is an opportunity. Why would I want to go short? There was just less opportunities to go short. I want to go with these trends, hold runners. And then when my time frame switches to neutral, larger time frame bias, I'm going to just back off and things are going to get more two-sided again. I'm also basing this on what Bitcoin's doing as well, is looking at these time nodes. So this is a really nice candlestick. It's holding pretty well. I mean, it was up over 31% on the day. This is a pullback. So just hold on to that sucker if you're in on that signal from yesterday. You could take profits right now, but if you're an investor, you could be more ambitious and hold towards a higher target, right? I would if you have a couple $100 in and you can afford to lose it. If you have a larger position size and you've already made thousands of dollars on it and you can take some off. Depends on, what your appetite is. Um, let me and what your time frame that you like, or maybe you're trading. Like I'm basically having a multiple time frame, multiple type of strategy, multiple edge strategy where I'm trading on multiple time frames. So I also do a buy and hold DCA, but that's not going to produce you any money tomorrow, like this weekend, right? So I also do income producing trades, which are a hybrid of day trading and swing trading, right? And I go long and short on those. Eventually, once I incorporate in an offshore exchange, I will put a huge amount of money and start day trading on a large amount and just back off from the holds because we're not going to have a bull run forever. And then I feel like if I got robbed on exchange, there'd be some type of protection through a company and insurance. That's at the end of this cycle, which I think we're just getting started. Like, imagine when Bitcoin gets to 100 something thousand, which I talked about, it could easily get, I think I wrote in the channel, it could easily get there. And if I didn't publish it, I deleted it because I didn't want to I always try to not get too confident, but that's how I was just basically looking at the odds. This thing is going to easily, based on the 100% range principle, Bitcoin is going to get to 100,000 very quickly. And if we go to the weekly here, I mentioned this. Actually, I showed it in the channel on the monthly. I know I posted a lot of charts, so maybe it got lost in time. Where's my monthly chart? Let's see here. There we go. So I said, hey, look at this range. This is that huge range that everyone let everyone down. But really, guys, if we go from one end of the balance straight line to the other, it never breaks out. I don't care if this is a 15-minute or a monthly chart, right? That principle holds true. And I wrote it in that PC setup, which is why I don't like pullbacks underneath major resistance, right? Because it's just I want it when it breaks out, pulls back before it, all that kind of thing. Anyway, once this broke, right? If I take a fractal of this time frame and clone it up here, if we move 100% up here, right, that should technically be the first problem area, right? So just from a time frame perspective, I wouldn't be going long now. It's 4:17 p.m., et cetera, et cetera. The long signal that I gave yesterday with the double bottom, which was going to help our sweet trade as well, because I use other market synchronicities. A lot of times you'll start seeing this. For when I trade S&P 500, I'm using the NASDAQ and the Russell, and sometimes I do trade those as well, but most of the time I don't. Obviously, when I'm using Bitcoin, I'm using Ethereum, but also these altcoins, I'm using Bitcoin and Ethereum as well, looking at how they're doing and seeing who's leading and who's not. Very bullish, right? This broke 100%, but the real fractal that I'm looking at is when we break 100% of this fractal, where is this going to go? This takes us up to $133,000 to 134, right? That is a reasonable, right, from the lows of March 2023, which were around 15,000, which we did give a signal in the channel based on a time node. You can definitely go back. I made a video about it, a short, which I can actually show you guys as a reminder. We told people to start buying there. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, you guys would be really, that's a great spot. And, based on breaking that takes us to here. That's a reasonable place to say, okay, especially if it starts triple top, bubble top up here. right? We may get some institutional level FOMO like we've never seen, guys, because we're going to have governments. Basically, we're going to have a bull market this round, not of just savvy retail average Joes like us, but actual governments, institutions. This thing could get really, really crazy. So that's why, like, basically me calling it real time. So we're switching our bias now from our neutral larger time frame bias to our bullish larger time frame bias. I'll be taking shorts off the table. Support gets weighted higher than resistance. We're taking every double bottom for the most part, every some good support for the most part, getting more aggressive and holding for longer things. So it's been a good month, I gotta say, for trading and for the bags. I don't think I mean even when ours up 14%, people are getting their hopium back. So let's go. Let's take a look at Ethereum on the monthly, right? Has a lot to catch up on, but it's on its way. What I like here on the stochastics is that for the first time we've hit that oversold signal, and now we have a cross of the blue over the orange RSI, which is an indication of sustained momentum. Now I predict for the rest of the month we'll have blue over this and we'll ride this up like Bitcoin already has. If we go back, it already has. You can see these better playing out on the weekly, so there's a little bit more data to see on a smaller time frame. Also, I discovered this 30-week cycle Bitcoin code that predicted 100% on. I hate doing 100% predictions. Like, not that I know it was going to happen, but I mean, it did happen 100%. It was on the same day. I mean, sometimes I get shocked at how well some of these fractals work. This was on September 9th. I mean, it predicted the boom. That was in the channel as well prior to that happening. And then, I'm just zooming it out, right? Well, if if this was mediocre and we were here by the time we were at this time node, right? I would give this resistance at the top of this box more weight for a reversal that would be more likely if it had a false breakout, for example, to take us back down to the bottom of it. Because this has gone parabolic, we've gone to a new phase of the market where I wouldn't be surprised if this doesn't hold at all. That's why I moved my runners to 105,000. I mean, we almost got to 99,000 today. Some of my biggest mistakes in trading are I get a great entry and I have my runners up artificially up ahead of time, but I'm not concentrating on the exits. I get stuck doing something else, managing the portfolio. And these things sometimes move a lot faster than I think. I've been prematurely stopped out on these runners and it pisses me off because I like having runners in because I have an Ethereum runner in, a Bitcoin runner in, also holding bags. So I don't feel pressure now to trade some very aggressive Ethereum pullback, near a resistance zone because I missed out. Even though my other Ethereum runner did get stopped out by Nick, kind of pissed me off a little bit, but that's part of it. I mean, that's part of the quad exit. So I contemplated moving the stop loss back to the original amount. You can do that sometimes if you took some off, but I'm conservative and I didn't want to take a loss on a winner. And there was a loss yesterday on the first entry on SWE, but the second one, holding up pretty good. I took half off. Let's go towards that chart because we took a look at these. Let's look at Ethereum on this time frame. You see how this has gone really nice, the blue over the orange? That's predicting the parabolic, the sustained momentum. It's a lagging indicator. So when I gave this signal here on the time node and on the support and other things in the double bottom and other things in the zero line reject on the CCI, this thing was not helping us because it's lagging, but it caught up pretty soon and then it confirms it can help you hold longer. When someone said, hey, should I take some off here? I said, no, look at this momentum. This guy's an investor. I'm just being honest. It's going to go higher. You should take some off. It's other points in this cycle, but this was really good as this was going to break out. Now, Ethereum also getting confirmed sustained momentum since we had this double bottom, which I also gave as a signal on the support fractal here on this double bottom here. Bam. It took longer than when I drew this, but I mean, that's just the nature of trading. You held through this, you're doing very well. And we have this sustained momentum, which was kind of helping you pull through this. The blue was above the orange, and now it's confirming it, right? So it's looking pretty good. Let's go on a daily time frame now, and we'll take a look at some alts. just as a reminder how fast this got to $4 from December 6th to $5 rather. I forgot it got to five. I mean, I got up at four, but whatever. I'm not trying to capture everything. I'm talking like 2 months. And if even this up to four was like half a month. So this thing can really move. Now, take a look at some of these, right? Obviously, Bitcoin needs to lead. We know cyclically this thing has to go first. We're going to look at the Bitcoin dominance chart right now. And we'll see that even though I have this as alt season scenario one, lower odds if we get sharp reversal down, we are still getting, because there's been sideways action at this, like when alt season was dead, 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 and then this was around November, early this month, and then it started to have some really nice movement in some certain things on certain days because this was sideways, right? But most likely, what's going to happen is Bitcoin's still going to go and act like an altcoin for a while, even though Ethereum's catching up. And I wouldn't be surprised if this eventually breaks because of the way this got here, and we have an alt season more when however long it takes to get up to this higher odds scenario, right, where we have a greater expansion and it could be a greater contraction, even though there's overall possible movement up based on net cash flow of the relativity between the two markets, between Bitcoin and the alts, when it gets up to 72, 63. This one's nice because it's at the golden mean just as a synchronicity, but it's also at this giant bounce breakdown, which caused a lot of problems in the previous bull market as both support and as where we launched from. So I'm not taking this area lightly. I drew this way ahead of time. It's just, it's a key reference area. It's been a huge problem. Now, this area obviously is, the all of this bull. So, I mean, that's as high as we've ever gotten. And, at least relative to the last bull market, you could see eventually when things were really small markets, it was like insane. It was all Bitcoin. But, we've had growth in the alts. We're going to have a lot of movement in the alts, and people that have made tons of money up to Bitcoin up to 100,000. Why wouldn't they take some of their profits now and throw it into these small caps and let these things rocket? It's the same patterns. It's going to happen again. Will happen again. We'll still before it'll never change. Oh my God, when's this thing going to move? I experienced an intraday in the sweet trade that I've been in since yesterday. It's been moving like molasses, and I'm like, man, why did I pick that one out of all these other ones I could have picked? Could have been a better one. But I'm like, well, I'm going to take half off and use that quad exit now, get rid of that emotional energy, even though it probably could break up and go higher, and let it go because, and then focus on some of the other things, the two Bitcoin, the Ethereum ideas, runners that are in, the Bitcoin runners, and just get a more positive mindset. And you want something that is in this LTO trade I've been talking about, really mooning now, right? We've had a huge bounce breakout, and I've been telling people in that Telegram group to calm down because we have a big picture bounce breakout, not pulling back into deeper fib, which was just area of the bounce breakout area. And that holding is pullback continuation style 101. We also have a zero line reject. We also have a huge vertical volume spike confirming the bounce breakout, which if we go back and have a similar volume level, was not the reversal of a trend up, but rather a steep pullback, seemingly to the shorter time frames, but in the context of a giant big picture intermediate term trend up. So that's what I think is going to happen again, except this is going to go higher. This is an RWA narrative, and they're getting a lot of movement now because I think the meme stuff, which was pumped during when the the Biden administration, and the whole narrative of this SEC was against crypto, right? And they pumped memes and shitcoins or whatever. But now I think the real ones that have some utility behind them now, like LTO, with the ability to do the tokenization of pretty much any asset now, and in talks with governments and partnerships with some governments and the UN and IBM and so on, will do well. And it's only at 17 cents right now. And I think when I mentioned, I've been talking about this coin since 6 cents. So it's a good RWA one as well. Theta hasn't moved as much as I wanted it to recently. We'll take a look at Theta real quick. Also, I like AI play, but also the fact that it's starting to act like the interoperability. It's sort of like the Polkadot of AI because it's not really trying to compete with any other in that particular space. I'd rather be a friend of it all. I like that. But still, despite the partnerships and the idea behind it being really savvy. All right, well, This is, I think if you type in theta, I may have actually been talking about due for one leg up, two leg up. This is now the third leg up pullback on top of this bounce. We're talking rocket ship now. This has got great odds to break because it's only this, one leg up. This is you could even, I wouldn't call this a leg. It's too small, one leg, two, and now we put, so this thing is going to be a monster. Once we break this giant bounce, you guys know what happens. We get price discovery because it's a bigger picture bounce breakout pattern. And then what happens? Time frame alignment, favoring support over resistance. Pretty much don't even need to go short for a while and just get it long at every pullback in. Ride that sucker up. Okay, that's a bigger picture pattern. Now, if I only had this, unified way of thinking, I would say, oh yeah, no, but there's other things we look at. The system is not just this. It's a multitude of things stacked pre-market that we talked about in the daily call, as well as these real-time things that we have to look for as well. And if it's not in sync, then we just don't do it. Right. So may not be getting the price discovery as others at 4.2%, but I like where it's at because it's due for a big move. Now, me saying yesterday was due for a big move, man. Once I'm good at calling trends before they start, when all these factors line up. And I did this the day before Op made its run to $4 as well. I'm not trying to brag, but I did do that. I remember I said the same thing. The last time it broke out, it was around, I think I gave the price maybe around one. I'm not sure 100%, a little bit less than one maybe. And then it went to four. But this is the same exact call that I did here. And it's not rocket science. Now I just laid it all out to you. And I'm trying to think, does everyone not see this? And then I go on YouTube and listen to other people and no one's talking about this. So it is unique. Don't tell anyone it. It's all listed. The pre-market factors for a trend, they really work out. This was basically a bigger picture pattern here, inside a bigger picture pattern here, with a zero line reject here, with Bitcoin breaking out there, with all the other things I'm not going to give out anymore, but that is enough. And bam, really flying now. What else are we looking at? Yeah, Cass also. I expect to have another leg up now as it's pulling back into a fib. We have is now a good zero line reject. We have 100% range of broke fund getting ready to go up there. Obviously, it had one leg, two, and then the second leg just happened to be into great resistance. It's all contextual, right? Bam, why wouldn't we get a tradable reaction down? This is where you would take profits if you weren't a huddler, for example. You know what I mean? So, and now at the first really good 38.2 fib ratio with the doji pause, that's your first confirmation that now you can be sideways up tomorrow. So even though it's lagging, it could have the biggest day tomorrow. So these all even though these all generally move in the same direction, they all have their different individual story, and it doesn't mean that one right now can't catch up. For example, Ren, I said, was due for a big move. Very similar pattern to Op. Giant mature balance, V sideways, kind of like multiple legs up, little V pattern here around a VPOC, and then, having these double-digit days now, a couple days in a row, right? When it was here, was it? No, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the right one. I meant to say render, not Ren. Hang on a sec. Here we go. Right? Very similar to Op, mature balance, VPOC, right? I gave the signal right here, right? Because I just was like the V, the sideways, the dip. Of course, you could just have gone in here on trade location. Very hard to just do that. When you're going against a short term and intermediate term bias, and we've been in a bear market since May overall, right? You have to only do it on one because you have basically a very low quality trade, but you have a major support zone. Major support has to be the bottom of a multi-month bounce, and you have a V buying tail here and a node here. This is definitely a trade because it's halfway, at least halfway between these two, right? Really nicely, right? But you don't have to catch that. The confirmation pullback right here was fine, and we had a huge move out of that. And we're having a pretty decent little pause day here as well, waiting for this to pull back to get another zero line reject to indicate a short-term reversal of the bearish momentum. So Curve has been surprisingly strong, but it's the same pattern. I basically gave a lot of different coins with the same exact pattern of these old narratives before they exploded, because everyone was on squeezed dick for a while. And I'm not going to say I haven't been as well, but now we got to just be honest with ourselves and say it's just, it cooled off a bit. Now I had to get in on day trade a little bit tricky, but it's really slowing down, at least compared to Sol right now. But now it's picking up a little bit. It did have that scare this morning. It kind of pissed me off this morning. I was like, wow, I invested way too much in this. And then it quickly fixed itself. And I'm like, okay, all right, I'm back on it. I'll trade it. I'll even day trade it again to help it out a little bit. But I wanted to hold for my first target up here. And part of me was looking at the daily, but it just looks it was it'll probably do that. But I'm just saying it's psychologically it was difficult to sit through not financing as it's doing this, even though it's kind of a V sideways dip. But I'm thinking, okay, this just has relative weakness today. What if this just fails and we get a double bottom? I'm going to miss out on that profit because this was a profitable trade and it was a loser because I didn't take profits there. And, I was just, that was kind of stuck in my mind a little bit as well, previous. But, odds are I'm okay with that because I have a runner in previously where that trade's up. Last time I checked, that was over 7 grand in profit right now. The other day trade I did, swing trade was up close to 13,000 in profit. And I put way more into the portfolio at below dollar levels to a dollar. That I'm just holding on, hopefully all those bag will just get, smashed up. So I've been really kind of, even though I'm doing Bitcoin, Ethereum a lot, I kind of switched, a lot of Bitcoin trades. I switched over to my ES trading over to SWE for a while because SWE's got nice charting, but it moves really well. So you don't even need to bet a huge amount to make a lot of money on. Really, you don't need to have a huge six-figure account to get really good trades. Bet more conservatively and still smash up on it. And what helps me just trade in a larger time frame, long being okay with going long on these is that I have these runners in stacked earlier, so I do have this abundant mindset. I am trained to take small losses from the day trading and to also use the same contextual setups to get good DCAs for the bags. But the bags aren't, I'm not cashing in bags yet, are you? So it's not earning anybody money on my end unless you trade with me. Then you can trade and take some in on every 30 days or every, 2 weeks, however you want to do it. And that's a good day when you take some out. I'm definitely due to take some out. I've been compounding my count up again, but I'm about to take some out because I think I'm done buying bags for a bit. I've been really buying a lot of bags. Pretty much, I'm sure every single thing that you see in here, I'm trying to think if there's anything in here that I put in recently that someone else asked me to. I don't own any more gold or physical silver anymore. So I just put this there because people ask me, and I don't own any ton. Someone asked me that, and I sold all my TIA. So I should get rid of that. But I think people will ask me about it. Maybe I'll get rid of it. I'm gonna get rid of it. Everything in here I own. So this is pretty much my entire portfolio right here. And I kind of wish that I didn't have so many coins. It's a lot of different coins. There's got to be more there's probably some more that I forgot. Yeah, there's some shit coins, really shitty coins that I just bought from a signal from some other, like the micro guys. I don't even bother putting them on here. But this is it. This is the main these are Tika's 5 catch-up coins where he said, hey, if you miss Bitcoin, these are the ones that are gonna go crazy. Now his thesis was that these were gonna moon in the April of 2022, even after Bitcoin made that double top in November of the previous year, because he said that there was going to be a supply crunch, which even though the halving was still 2 years away, that there was going to be this supply crunch due to Visa and MasterCard needing to buy up so many on the open market because they just, it just wasn't a good timing. I mean, you cannot discount these technicals. You don't want to start allocating your altcoin portfolio. I don't care how low it is, unless you want to sit for years or like 7 months. If Bitcoin's making a double top at recently, I'm talking about like in March, you know. But now that these coins are still near their lows and Bitcoin's breaking out, start loading into some of these. These are all great prices. The Bitcoin dominance will shift. They're gonna start moving. I mean, they're already starting to move anyway with it, because everything's starting to grow. Some of my biggest bets this narrative, since I'm just giving it all away here, is pretty much say I reloaded about 200K into all these guys here on this bull run. That's a lot of trading, a lot of work, throwing it in there. Um, and I'm still holding that from the last bull run. I know I've on other bull runs I've talked, not other bull runs, other coaching calls I've talked about the mistakes of not selling and what that meant last run. But basically none of those have been hacked, and I didn't need to cash out on them. And I swapped some of them for different things. But this bull run, recently what I've gone pretty much into is Ito, which is a micro meme, Tensor, which I've talked about. I talked about Tensor. Gave that signal to everybody in, I think it was August 7th or 9th, which was around $5 to $6. So right there, and I basically said this is the thesis behind this is it's a beta play to Tau. Tau's the AI darling. It's already on ETF funds and like some kind of, what do you call those things? An index, small portion of that index, but come on, it's a micro on an index. That's really cool. The AI darling, Tau's done amazing as well. And I'm also invested quite a bit on this. I don't trade Tau. I'm not trading Tensor. And even though these are obvious sell signals for traders, I didn't cash out of this at all. And I also didn't cash out on Ito as well. I think the signal I gave was a little premature because, we went straight up, then we went to sideways market, and then we went down. And I was already looking at the level again, not thinking as well because I was excited to get into, hey, micro memes as well, especially switch phases. This is a down market now. It's going to go sideways. It's not going to go up again. So whatever. I'm sitting through this. I didn't bet a huge amount on this. I put like 2,500 on it. So, you know, like I said, the Ito play is basically, and this is a special pick. I don't want giving this one out. I get Intel. This is private Intel that this is the micro cap of around 5 million. It could be more now. You got to check the micro cap of around 5 million to like a Nero play, which is around 700 million. It's like Nero's somebody's dog or something. I don't know. It's you got to look into all the names behind it. But come on, I had $5 million, and yet Vitali selling half his bags. Like, what the hell is Vitali, the Ethereum dude, buying this shit? That's one thing about it. I'm just gonna say that. So I think, well, why not? I mean, look what it already did. So we're around here. I'm definitely not gonna like cash out anytime soon. I'm not gonna cash out here. I'm gonna let this. I'm not even gonna cash out up here. Time cycle wise, everything's gonna be up next year, first, second quarter for sure, compared to where it is now. There's gonna be so the bags don't even really look at them if you can. Curve was another one that I said was due for a big move, save pattern. I didn't think it was going to be this huge, but anytime you break a giant bounce, this thing's going to start taking off. It's one of Tika's catch-up coins. And then, of course, SWE, been a great coin for everybody. There's meme coins associated with it. This is one of the fastest blockchains I've ever used. If you ever try to swap on the SWE wallet for other types of SWE-based tokens, they're free. There's no fee and very fast, but just not performing well. So you can see why I decided to take some off. I mean, why the fuck isn't my long yesterday looking like this one? Like I should have traded fucking. I didn't know. I'm just looking at probabilities. But what happened is this is a firm specific risk. That sweep thing kind of really frightened me, man. I'm sure other people were talking shit and they were flooding it on Twitter. I was looking underneath just a little bit to gauge sentiment, and it just hasn't fucking moved. But you can see the zero line reject here. This is really what I'm focused on. I don't like to get isolated on one factor, but this is kind of extreme. Now, I would like it more if this yellow was touching the purple line. That's the only thing that's giving me pause to be like, okay, why? Other times if you backtest it, I like to see this over a little bit. But we have such a separation here. That's another thing we look for. That this thing, you know, is going to smash up. But I got half on this new trade, and I have a runner on from another trade, and then I got the bag. So it's enough on the SWE thing. for now. But I remember when it was up here, it was, I was basically saying, hey man, this thing is thinking right. It's first time at its all-time high. Bitcoin had not broken its all-time high yet. It was still neutral. Why wouldn't you reduce risk here? This was a great place to reload. Took some risk off. Oh, actually, this time I did take some off of the portfolio. I take it back. And there was a trade when we waited. But I'm back on the portfolio as well now. So, and I gave that one right on the spot on this day, 100%. You can go back in the channel and look. That's pinned, double bottom, right? Intermediate term trend was multiple legs down, exhausted, into good support. Super strong. Zero line reject that day, if I remember, or at least here, right? When we first went down, super strong hook from extreme. And then we had a Vegas on this day, which is a little bit more complex pulling back hook, right? So, um, but I think it's really doing well on the news because it's got that rumor or may even be a confirmation that it's going to get some type of ETF approval. So we're going to see, it's going to be a wild time. It's going to be a lot of life-changing opportunities, I think. And it may go longer in that second quarter that everyone talks about. Like, oh, I came in the second quarter, I'm out. But just use your quad exit when we load again. I think this bull run may go a lot longer and higher than people thought because of this institutional thing happening. Now China's unleashed um their gates, and then we haven't even had retail come in yet to really kickstart it. That's going to be fun. So that's the little overview, guys. Now, I'm going to open the floor up to questions if anyone has any, and take a minute or two if you to gather your thoughts. Actually, you know what? Let me see. Someone might be trying to unmute themselves. Oh, can everyone unmute?
I am
Oh,
unmuted.
good.
I am unmuted. I'm just carefully considering the context of my question, because it's been
Sure.
a while since I've been on a coaching call, a couple of years at least. Um, and thank you again for the invite, Mateo. I appreciate it. Okay, so with Bitcoin, if we can go back to that BTC USDT chart, my biggest concern with this is that we've got we do have sustained momentum and it's up and to the right, and we've got a clear zone continuation from that uh, rising wedge pattern. Rising wedge patterns are typically pretty bearish. The problem that I see here is that it looks to me like this is going to retrace back to the midline averages at some point. So if I'm looking for a retrace, is now a good time to start looking at those based upon those moving averages and I mean, I'm also seeing I mean, RSI momentum is through the roof. So, I mean, that's usually not when you buy. I've gotten burned on buying big breakouts because, like, at the top of the last cycle, I was buying some big breakouts on T Fuel. Fortunately, I sold them just in time so that I didn't lose like 10-20% in 2 days. So, market timing is not my specialty. So, I'm interested in your thoughts in terms of since I'm a spot trader, I don't have the ability to take advantage of down moves, only up moves. Because that's my risk tolerance for futures is zero. I'm not interested. I've lost enough on spot. But anyway, but that was from not trading, and not trading is trading. But that's the gist of my question based upon this chart, because I'm
Well, all I can
looking.
say is that what I've experienced is that when, just think about really, so since February, right? And now it took November. So from February to November,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's quite a long
Yep.
time. We've been in a pretty much a neutral, sideways, even down market, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just look at the size of the candlesticks. Let me get rid of this, right? But prior, when we were creeping up here, and I said, you can go back and read this. I said, once this breaks here and breaks with
Mm-hmm.
conviction, stays above it and builds structure, which was this, because of all those
Yep.
pre-market factors that were a line for a trend and the size of this balance. So I would just say simplify your language if you can. I use things like buying tail, selling tail because I want, it's
Okay.
right in
Buying
front of
tails is
me.
what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Just good entry zones
Well,
based upon this trend because I'm really nervous about placing any buy orders at
I get it,
all-time
but
high
this is what I'm
breakout.
getting at. This is what I'm getting at. Implicit in my language there is what to do. Now, once we
Hmm.
broke up here, you should be thinking time frame alignment. I'm only going long and I'm going very aggressive now. I'm getting in on shallow pullbacks. If you're waiting, if when this was when this was forming this sideways congestion, which was creeping higher,
Hmm.
yes, there's a dog leash potential to go test this, but really, when's the last time we moved away from this? Months. So we need to move away from
Yeah,
this.
several months.
Remember, price reverts to a mean, but in order to revert to a mean, it has to move away from the mean and go to an outlier. The thing that people don't
Right.
get is that when you have time frame alignment, you're always like feeling okay. Now it's going to reverse. Now I can't wait to be the smart guy who shorts it. I'm not getting caught, guys. This just broke. Now we have time frame alignment. We're gonna like this is what it's going to look like. Like it's gonna see this is imagine this is a giant cup and handle here. This is like kind of like where it's kind of neutral back and forth, slightly creeping, and then we broke this bigger picture pattern, this cup and handle. Look what happened. You have to shift your bias now. Larger time frame bias is going to be
Yep.
bullish, not neutral. Everything's up. Look at these shallow pullbacks. If you're waiting, that's nice because it got what you got your little moving average, but you can just boom, boom, every single one. Here, okay, fine, you were wrong because the intermediate term now had this inverse head and shoulder. So even if you didn't read that right, which fine, I take a quick loss. Am I not going to go long again here? Of course I am. That's a bigger picture. Context is bigger than this inverse head and shoulder pattern is a smaller pattern than this giant cup and handle we broke from. Pattern versus pattern. I'm betting on the bigger pattern. Pause day up
Hmm.
because I'm already knowing that once I break this, every single thing is I'm going long and only slightly backing off once I read a possible intermediate term, short term thing that we got to deal with. But then once it retests, the larger time frame bias kicks in again. And the thing is that when do people get really excited? Look at this. Look how timid people were here. Like timid, timid. But now once they saw it, oh heck yeah, heck yeah. That's what the market
Yeah.
does. Why were the biggest candles towards the? That's when I say when you start seeing big candles, we teach a thing called leg count. And we after a certain number of leg counts up that we teach in our system, once you see that, there's a high probability for a mega reversal. And if you start seeing large moves at the end of a trend potentially based on that leg count, that's a greater odds for a reversal. The problem is a lot of alts were at good prices then here, but the problem is that Bitcoin was just overdone. Now this balance maybe went a lot longer than people felt it could because they were so whatever. But it just forget the Trump thing happening. That's like a nice icing on the cake catalyst or whatever. Cyclically, right after the halving event, which was in May, let's go to that, like right around here, it goes
Hmm.
sideways for 6 months anyway. So we shouldn't even have expected much. But the way that this here kind of like a cup and handle, the way that it creeped up or stair step, and I just could see that the whole and then we have it. Then the alts are starting to do this with Bitcoin already in time frame alignment. Now alts are in time frame alignment. Then we have then other markets then add synchronicity edge to other things that I'm trading because that's part of my system is other markets. So and I'm also even checking yes, not even really to trade it, just to see if that's also kind of going up because like I want to see if there's this crazy Trump effect. Um, Look at this strong zero line reject here. That's what I'm betting with the sweet trade, right? That there's such a strong separation that despite how nasty this looks, that I mean, it helps that we got a nice trend in the moving average there. If we go to SWE, SWE's also kind of facing a little skepticism from that point specific risk that happened today. Does anyone know what happened that specifically, like why that happened? Why did they put
Well,
chain? Was
well,
it just
well, anytime you have a proof of stake blockchain, that consensus mechanism, unless you have robust numbers of nodes that will have enough throughput to handle all of the blockchain's traffic at any given moment, if it exceeds it by a certain percentage, what you'll start to see is intermittent transaction failures. And over time, you'll see all of them fail and then services start crashing. So if you think about a proof of stake blockchain more like an app than a proof of work blockchain that's got, you know, more stable uh, operational efficiency because it's been
So
in
in
the
layman
system for a
terms, it
long
just got
period of time.
overheated.
It got overheated. It
That
basically
sucks. I gotta
that
say, like that
yeah.
makes me not want to
Well,
get
if you
out of
get a
this right now.
huge,
To be honest with
yeah,
you.
that's the problem is that anytime that you're in these proof of stake projects, as long as you're off chain and some and disaster strikes, you can at least get out. But if you've got that on chain, you're screwed, right? So, just saying.
And if you can you just for anyone listening right now, because you're good at this, Chris, could you differentiate between proof of stake and proof of work?
So, proof of stake is a consensus mechanism that relies upon participants locking their tokens or their coins generally. And what it does is it aids the consensus mechanism by locking a certain percentage of the assets in order to get a return. And in exchange, those locked tokens uh, don't move on the blockchain, which means that in layman's terms, you have an effect of the operational efficiency not being dependent on more than one factor. You've got nodes, you've got staking, you've got, in the case of Theta, you've got, of course, edge compute. So the more computational vectors you have uh, to process the blockchain, the more stable it's going to be in a proof of stake environment. But Theta is not proof of stake; it uses a different consensus mechanism. But that's just an example of something that's proof of stake like. And initially, it was because it ran on Ethereum. Theta did before it migrated to its own chain. And then you've got something like Monero, which is um, proof of work. Now, in proof of work, physical hardware cloud servers, whatever it is, it has to be some type of physical device that is running an application that will, in this case, a mining application like Bitcoin, like Monero, like Litecoin, whatever it may be. And its process is to computationally solve collectively every block, one block at a time. And that's not the case with proof of stake because proof of stake usually validates blocks based upon a predefined um, interval, whereas it's non-fixed in proof of work typically. So that's the best way I can describe it, I think. And proof of work is exponentially more reliable because of the fact that it is typically on more dedicated hardware, has narrower use cases, but better robustness and resilience to attacks.
You said proof of work's more
Essentially,
reliable, you said?
yes, it's more reliable from a an uptime standpoint for that reason
And this you
because it
said
has.
Swede's proof of work?
But what is Swede?
Yes.
No, Swede's not proof of work. Swede's not proof of work.
Okay, that sucks. All
Proof of
right.
work blockchains very rarely halt because if they were to halt, that means that all mining activity just straight up stopped,
Okay, okay,
or
that makes sense. Yeah.
large percentages of the miners just disappeared, right? Like that, or you have like a mass power outage and people don't have their mining equipment on off-grid stuff, which most commercial miners have their mining on off-grid stuff now, especially in places like China and Kazakhstan. Those are the two. Kazakhstan is the number one destination other than Iceland for large scale cryptocurrency mining, data centers, rigs, etc. Because of the cold temperature of the land. It's much easier to keep those data centers cool versus other areas of the planet. So yeah,
Sweet man.
yep.
Thank you, appreciate it. There was another signal I gave that was successful on the channel, but I kind of regret even maybe alerting people to this because it is unfortunately a WEF backed coin. I hate to say it, but this is when I just when I saw this pattern, I mean, it was at like the real crazy lows here, and it was just this gorgeous double bottom, nice hammer candle. That's when I gave it, and just nice move. I mean, this was 8 cents up here. I mean, these are great. Don't discount, So, but part of me is like, well, I should get out of this coin. But I mean, it was this kind of like I was into it anyway, and I posted what it was, and I was like, ah, shit. But I'm already in it. I don't know. It's kind of learning about it after the fact, but I mean, I'm just kind of scanning for some patterns. Anyway, just mentioning that this was a pattern that just you can just see how I don't really have to know what a chart a coin is to see a nice pattern in a chart to trade, but once you realize that it's I mean, initially I liked it because I was like, oh, this is an exchange something something backed with diamonds. I was like, I'm all on this. And then I realized they had a WEF partnership, and I'm like, I just feel kind of really shady being in it. Can't be in it, but I'm in it for now. So
Well, don't feel too bad. Solana's got a WEF partnership too. So there you go.
actually, that's the only other coin that I don't own. I just have the only reason I
Oh,
have this on here
mm,
is because I've invested so much more in Swede. I don't have any in Solana, but they always say Swede's going to be the Solana killer. So I just I
mm,
kind of keep an eye on it just in case. But I mean, I might trade it. I mean, it seems
yeah,
like it's going to go nuts. Obviously, I'm not going to buy at the high here, but they
yeah.
say Swede could. What if Swede gets to $200? I mean, that's could it do that? You know,
It's
I don't know.
entirely possible. I mean,
Yeah.
the risks with SWE are the same as the risk with Sol, in my
Mhm.
opinion, because they run on very similar frameworks. But if you look at the way SWE recovered very quickly from that blockchain halt, it took Sol more than 20, I think it took them like 48 hours. They had a flash loan exploit that caused mass liquidations across like their digital loan portfolios that were existing inside of their decks, and they actually had to pull from the reserve fund to reimburse users. Yeah, to reimburse investors. So um, that's why I'm saying is if you're going to invest in anything that's Solana like or Sui like, now Solana has had more than at least I'd say somewhere between 12 to 14 blockchain halts since its launch, right? And fortunately, those blockchain holds did not occur like at the peak of the last bull market, but it's a wild card. So, but that being the case, with Sol, it didn't really break out at 250 with a lot of conviction. It's sideways down now, and but it did break all time high, but it seems to kind of be being petered out. So I'm interested to see buying tails. I put in a buy order around I think it was the 222.40 area, something like that, 222.4. I saw a fib retracement line around that section whenever I was looking at some order books and
Well,
comparing them with
I'm
charting.
just based on this, right? We were in this balance, right? I could draw the trend
Yeah.
lines here, but we're in a giant balance. There was contraction. Then
Hmm.
around this date, one leg up,
Hmm.
two leg up. Now this three leg up. Tomorrow's probably going to be another up day.
Okay.
Maybe it'll pull
All
back a
right.
little bit, get sideways up. You know what I mean? But
Mm.
look what happens kind of once it. I mean, even when it broke this leg, right? It still had a day where it went up a little bit, right? Now we have one, two,
Mm.
3 days back. But
Okay.
I like that this is in price discovery when Bitcoin's in price discovery. But fair I don't own this coin. I'm eyeing it. As a cousin to Sui, and I want Sui to look like what Solana, because this was an entry yesterday, right? And we got a nice fat pullback, and that's exactly the market that I wanted a bit. Then that thing happened this morning, and everyone's like, you know what? This is not a Solana killer. This is a joke killer. So it got a little punch. I mean, the volume was low. It was like I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with Sweet? I mean, this isn't the Sweet that I know." And then you sent that thing, and I was like, "Oh wow, okay." But I mean, at least the team fixed it quick. I just wish they. The problem, and I agree with what's under the Twitter page about it, is why hasn't they fixed it quick? Great, technically. Why haven't have they released any public or community? Like, why haven't they informed what happened? That's the thing I don't get. Publicly, I don't think the creator has. His forget his name. He's a Japanese.
Well, they'll usually give a post mortem like within 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the severity of the incident. Sometimes you can get quick recoveries that have complex factors that they're not wanting to disclose to the public. Some of these things can be distributed denial of service attack types of attacks, and it's much easier to do those types of blockchains because they're not proof of work. Uh, they can be targeted in this manner because they're more application based than they're hardware based, and that's the problem with this is that it's focusing on a provisioning model for the hardware, which means that, and this is common in virtualization of cloud environments where you can provision. It's like, okay, this is my expected use, but they have to factor in their cloud computing costs. They've got to factor in other things in terms of the cost of keeping the blockchain running, and that can also create a bit of a drain on the price if their costs go way up as a result of a big user influx. So transaction fees or the base functionality for how the blockchain operators get paid themselves is an important thing to look at whenever you're considering investing in these types of projects. Because if there's not a clearly established DAO or some type of you know, shall we say, plan of action, whenever there is a, a big event, when there's one, there's usually going to be more than one. And Optimism had the same problem earlier this year, as I recall, and one of our mutual friends outside the states. He wanted out because he had a compromise. He connected to a compromised smart contract, and so there's tremendous risk when you're inside of the live blockchain, inside of a so-called DEX. It's hard. You can't really call yourself a decentralized exchange if you're running on centralized architecture. It's just buzzwords. It's trying to trick
And
investors
the
and
thing
stuff
is
like
that I
this.
don't mind if it's centralized, if it's backed by like gold or diamonds or something real, like whatever, and
Yeah, yeah.
don't give my
I
info
mean,
to whoever, but who cares? I mean, they might abolish
right.
the
Yeah,
tax in the United States anyway, and they get rid of all taxes. I mean, you see Ron Paul posting it. Like, I just feel like, maybe someone will, maybe this administration will. I mean, already I feel like there's some effect on the markets happening because even if this scenario is already picked out ahead of time and he's part of the New World Order head, which he probably is, there's something going on
yeah.
here. A little bit of
Well, this is kind of
little
part of the
tad,
New World Order plan is they want to get rid of income taxes that are avoidable and replace them with taxes that are unavoidable, such as
like the
consumption
carbon
taxes.
tax, yeah, something like that. That's
Yeah,
interesting that they're
that's
like,
part of that's part.
yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
that's part of
see.
the
It's
agenda.
interesting.
Yeah. Now,
Well,
Eustace Mullins commented on this that you in some public talks he gave in the early 2000s that as well as some other detractors to Ron Paul is that you can't have a WEF centralized system with central banks in every country, which is exactly why Argentina closed its central bank. Why? Because they looted all the gold and sent it to London,
and I hate to
right?
say this, but we know who owns central banks. Let's not even get into it. But
Yeah,
and they've conquered the world. So we can finish on a positive note because it seems to me this transformation is happening. We are living through our adult version of the 90s.com when we were just kids. Now we are in this era to do some good. And I think this will be an interesting ride and to imagine really what this wealth transformation can do for you because that's really what this is. This isn't just a number on a screen. It's what this is going to do for you, your family, where you want to move to, et cetera. All the new choices and opportunities and freedoms you can have. And the opportunities are here. There's going to be a lot of trades for income producing trades. I'm going to give more portfolio picks, but I mean, right now, this is pretty much it. I don't plan on adding. There's that TMT. Oops, I said that newest pick besides the Ito and the Tensor and the Tau is that TMI from that same. If you want to play another meme coin that is related to this strategy here, just like I have my SWE and CETUS, my beta plate of SWE is CETUS, and that was a signal I gave yesterday for a portfolio reload. And taking a little bit longer, but a little bit more of a pullback, but still, I think this is going to be a nice double bottom. We're going to have bigger days tomorrow for both Cetus and Sui. I'd like Sui to look like Solana. Now, uh, going forward, right? That's just what I wanted to say, right? If I just looked at one thing, like, oh, I'm waiting for a pullback. When this thing starts to go parabolic, remember this: Bitcoin shifts. Most people can't switch their psychology from this energy to this. They're demoralized now, right? That's why I shifted quick and I prepared myself to shift before this broke with this strategy that I lay out. And now you see I'm very aggressive long on everything. And it's been great because I like time frame alignment. I like when my move work quickly. I hate that sideways back and forth. shitty trades. I mean, this was look at imagine trading on these days. You don't even want to really trade what's going on. But right, but at the same time, right, we have a probability calculation scale, right? As this is going up, price is making a new high, and there's a divergence on the CCI. And all I can say is, so what? That's one thing, right? Everything else, we just broke this fractal balance. Now it's going to run a little bit. But this is actually a ghost pattern, which I have as a CCI list. So just keep that in mind that even if we have a short term thing, just prepare yourself to look for an entry.
Yeah.
You shouldn't really be going short right now because you will get destroyed. Um,
Yep.
I told people not to short this retest of the all-time high based on those pre-market factors. Whereas before there was good odds just because this trend was exhausted. Now this balance is mature and it's ready to shift from a bouncing market to a trending market, and that's really the two phases of market. They're either trending or balancing, but most of the time they balance. But when they do trend, you can make your most amount of money on the trends. You just have to shift your bias, which is the hardest part. But
Yeah.
you
One
know,
thing that when I'm looking at this longer time frame that you got in the box, uh, if you clone that and then would it be valid to clone that and then overlay that with the new balance breakout to try to see where the new trading range is? Or whenever I'm in this type of hardcore balance breakout from all time high and price discovery, you know I don't know what types of mathematical or scientific methods to use to say, okay, when do I stop just you know buying every tail and start to get a little bit tighter on my risk management here.
mhm. Well, you have to look for signs of the trend getting exhausted, right?
Okay.
And when I zoomed out on the weekly and the monthly, I did the same thing that I'll do here in a second. Is I took this giant, seventh month balance since March or whatever, and I cloned it, and I got basically, where I think that it would go, and you can see that, even based on this time frame here,
Mhm.
right? Now the daily's giving me a little bit different data. On the monthly, I'm taking in a little bit more data, so it had it a little bit higher. But no, actually, it did have. I think it had the same. Let's just save this real quick, and we'll go to the weekly. Yeah. So same thing. You have this data, and we have 100% range that we broke from, and there is that 100% range principle. Remember, with this system, it's a probability calculation scale. I will never tell you not to take profits. If you
Right.
want to take profits, you have to understand that some people have bought and DCA'd way lower, and they're just holding. They're investors. They're
Yep.
holding through this. If they want to,
Mhm.
they can. At the same time, you see this place, and this definitely makes sense to take profits based on that range principle,
Mhm.
right? At the same time, we broke that range principle. We did break this giant balance breakout too. So we not only broke this balance, which is maximized on this time frame, and it could be just like couple of weeks down, right? We broke this time frame. If you were up here and you're an investor and you're not taking some off at 134,000, well, then you could be in for some pain
Mhm.
because that's 100% of this fractal, and that's the one I'm more concerned about for an investor.
Right.
That makes sense.
I
But
see.
even though it's like,
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
the thing about this is 100,000 and this is only 32,000 more. So when I talk about um, expectancy, right? You also could think about risk reward for your exits too, right? If I got in here, or even when we set to at 15 or whatever, and there's some investors that would be willing to do this. I use expectancy in this thing on my all my trades, whether it's a day trade or an investment. If I bought here and I haven't taken any profits yet, but just think about the risk reward. But I'm willing to let my investment go all the way down to 15 and maybe down to here, below break even. Forget it. I'm willing to let it go all the way down to break even at least. That means I have a negative risk reward ratio because I'm only, my next reward is is this target just from here to here. That's my reward. But my risk is all the way down here. We have to have the opposite of that for every trade. You want it to have the
Yeah.
reverse. So just think about your expectancy on your exits as well. From a risk reward
Okay.
perspective, yes, but that's why, but then there's also this thing called odds and probability of a trend. We just broke this bigger picture bounce. It's going to get probably to here based on this range principle and higher. But one, two, three, just look, first of all, just also look at the nature of these candles. These weekly candles are bigger than any candle that we've had in the last 6 months here.
Hmm.
And they look like this candle here and the candles that I wanted to see right at the beginning of us breaking out of this thing, maybe from the bottom here, even up here. And we did a little bit here, but we got short-term exhausted at the all-time highs because of a principle that you get the greatest reaction and highest odds for a reaction on first test of a zone. So when it came up here and tested this resistance zone on first test, you could just say, you know what, I'm going to short that on principle alone based on the first test principle. Pop up. And now we use the double top because that's just a psychological intraday extra edge. It still could be the first test of the zone. It just helps you get in. Sometimes I can get in on first test and it can stay there for hours. But you can just see how the first test of the zone, if you just held and just sat through, and it got down to here at this major support zone now, you made a killing on the short based on the fact that we were at a major resistance zone and you had the first test principle and you had multiple leg counts up. This is exhausted. Now we have giant candlesticks, but it just broke this balance. That's the start of a trend. That's what I want to see for price discovery. So I'm not expecting this 100% range principle to outweigh everything I just said about breaking up the balance, the multiple time frame alignment. I'm not expecting this to go all the way back down to 70,000, 16, where it broke out from here. If it does, then I will buy again. You know what I mean? I'm not expecting that. I'm
Yeah.
just basically taking every shallow pullback. So this is how I'm preparing the scenarios in my mind with little NLP so I can just take quick action. I don't even have to I don't have to look at I'm basically in a flow state now. I don't have to do really fill out these sheets and think about these things. I'm just bam, 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 bam. That's for people that are just starting out. You should when you're starting out, but these things will just start to come alive for you. Now,
Okay.
if
Well,
when we get up here, right, and this
I'm
starts
like
to
a
go,
novice at
yeah,
best, so yeah,
I would say,
I'm
yeah, if you
a
you
beginner.
know, the more you fill out, the more you look at these things, it'll help. But now we're in price
Yeah.
discovery, we're in different things. So when you took that Ethereum trade today, let's look at that real quick. 260. I mean, you had like your instinct was right. You saw like this insane bias on the day. It was still early enough in the day. So you bought like was it right on this pullback somewhere around
3320, 3320 is where I bought.
33.20?
Hmm.
So up here,
Yep.
was it on this doji?
It was I wasn't looking at this particular doji chart. I did a fib retracement from the top of that channel to find out where I could find some
Something like
potential buy
this?
zones. Yeah, yeah, something like that.
And then you got in here,
Hmm.
33.20.
Yep.
All
Because
right, so you were so basically probably on this candlestick here.
yep, precisely. When I saw that, I knew I
Okay.
would hit that buy order.
So
So
so in isolation, you have we went in balance and you have this giant, you see this momentum and you see the
mhm,
bias and you see, keep in mind you waited for a pullback. It is at the most aggressive trade location, right? Because it is at 0.23. It's not at
mhm,
0.382. It's just keep that in mind. And there's a rule that I
yep,
posted in that PC rule sheet. Hopefully that's helpful to you. That, for the most part, you should have just skipped this because even though it's going to work out for you or it did, you're buying a pullback right at a very strong resistance zone. It's not like so if we saw this green thing and you
mhm,
saw it break through this, and then you saw this structure pulling up, if you saw this structure above it pulling back into this yellow, heck
mhm,
yeah, buy that. That's great. But
yeah,
when it's underneath it, you're in for some pain because it's like, who wants to sit through this? Now that's why I said if when this was pulling back and you thought the shorts, you were getting a little nervous, like, oh, this is going to fail because it feels really
mhm,
bearish. When you see these retracements, you're thinking, shit, is this just going to be that Bart Simpson reversal pattern? Just keep in mind with time frame alignment. When I saw that, Not that I bought here, but I could have. I went back and I looked at the bias, and it was still very high. In the
Well,
whole
just to be
market
clear,
was
it was this, if I may, this it was the second largest short in Ethereum's history in terms of size.
what
So
was
that's
but
why
this one here.
yeah, yeah.
But you
But
were
they
reading
still
the
couldn't
tape.
bring the price. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, okay, if I'm seeing that hard of a short, then perhaps my risk is not quite as high because the price held, even though it was the second largest short in
Well,
its
that's why I
history.
don't even look. I mean, you can look at the tape, but I don't even need to add that data real time because I'm using these
Hmm.
pre-market higher. See how just the time frame, all the stuff I said for the trend.
Yeah.
There was good odds that this would continue based on this principle called intraday bias, which is like who's in control of the day. Then I talk about the larger time frame bias, who's in control of the larger
Okay.
time frame. Well, the the intermediate and the big picture were still up for Ethereum. That's why the really awesome entry that I gave yesterday was right here. You see, I was just this double bottom here,
Yeah.
and it was
I
at the
missed
bottom.
it, so I was looking for another entry.
It's
So
okay. Yeah,
yeah,
that's fine. I sometimes I'm sleeping and I miss the easy entry too, and then I have to take it.
yeah.
Trend entries are awesome because they have super high odds, but you have to have the context right. So the context
Right.
was that yes, intraday, you still had all the factors in the world to take this for a tradable reaction, but you have to gauge the likelihood of continuation. Now that we're underneath this giant um, resistance zone, at the very least, you better take profits up here. You know what I mean? Even though you're sitting through it probably because you, right? I mean, I assume you didn't take profits.
Well, I just made an entry at 33.20 with a very small amount of money, so there's
Okay,
not
that's
really
what I thought.
profits
Like
to take
you
yet.
put something on
Yeah,
because if I
yeah.
was and I took like a
It
larger
was like
size, I'd be
it's
like,
like less than $200. I mean,
that's fine. Yeah,
I
that's
sort
what
of
I thought.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But I
totally
mean, I've
fine
almost
with me.
3x my trading fund in 6 months, so I'm doing something right.
You're doing something right. So
Yeah.
this, odds to break, but risk wise, we would take a quad exit here if we bought here.
Hmm.
Maybe a reload as it pulled back up here into the 6.18. You could have contextually said, hey, the intraday bias is still up, but I have to have good trade location because of this super strong resistance. This resistance zone is
Hmm.
nothing to scoff at. Because you broke this 5 day balance, there's a trend. But also look what
Yeah.
happened. We had a strong move down. So equal in nature, right? At least in the intraday.
Hmm.
So this is a battle, but still, this will probably break because of other markets and other higher time frame things. Bitcoin still too. I said, hey, this would be nice if it held here for the other trade for the alts. But when it broke here, I said, hey, this could hold here too because I drew this trend line. We were in a trend, and we have larger time frame bias bullish, multiple time frame alignment. We have bigger picture balance breakout patterns. So I'm just every support now is higher weight. If we were in the middle of that 6, 7 month sideways crap, just in the middle of it, and I saw this thing go boop and this thing boop, I would be like, I'm not. That's nothing. I don't care about that because we're in this new context that's super bullish. Yeah, I'm waiting all the support more. So yeah, guys, we're gonna wrap up with that, and
Cool.
thank you for coming out. And you guys know where to find me.
Thanks, Mateo. Appreciate it, sir.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Take care, buddy.